Reality check. A big slap in the face, and the Jaguars weren't even playing. I'll tell you why Championship Sunday has me feeling really, really bad about our team.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yo, what up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Locked On Jaguars. I'm the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, Tony Wiggins. And here it's your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen. A quick reminder, we're free to subscribe to on our YouTube page. That is Locked On Jaguars. So you go there, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and hit that bell so you get notifications each and every time we drop an episode. Also, wherever you listen to your audio versions of podcasts, make sure you tap into that location every single day to make sure you don't miss out. Today's show is sponsored by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use all lowercase Locked On NFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Shout out to the everydayers who join us every day. And you can be an everyday if you're not one. All you got to do is listen every single day. Speaking of everydayers, I ran into my man Clarence, and he told me he was an everyday. I saw him at our neighborhood grocery store, and I want to shout him out because he said I'm an everyday. So you can't, when you ain't gonna fake it when you see me in public and you be like, man, I love your show. He says I'm an everyday. He let me know right then and there. So every time people do that, man, I'm gonna try to shout him out. We appreciate you. All right. And then there's the Jaguars. Championship Sunday yesterday was it was good. It was very, very entertaining, but it was also very educational. I watched with a different intent yesterday as the 49ers and Chiefs both advanced. By the way, I got both games wrong. I always talk about when I'm right. I'll tell you when I'm wrong too. I got both games wrong. But both of those teams, both of those games showed me elements of and reminded me, if you will, what it looks like. And when I say it, I'm talking about being able to compete at that high of a level and having an identity. And that's a word that's been thrown around a lot lately, that this team doesn't have an identity. Win or lose, we saw teams yesterday win or lose with their identity. They had one. They knew what it was, and they played that way, and somebody had to win and somebody had to lose in both games. That's pretty much what it came down to. And I tried to envision what it would look like with the Jaguars as they're currently constructed, but on their best day, playing against those types of teams. And every single time I tried to imagine that, I had to stop because I didn't like what I saw. There's a reason why, we've heard a lot about what Trent Baalke has said and what Doug Peterson has said, and both of them in their end of years, how they got to get better, how they got to improve, how Doug said that Trevor's capable of doing stuff. And Trent basically said that they need to get bigger and stronger and be more physical. And I sat there and I said, well, that's it. I see why they don't have an identity. Because all year, I think Doug Peterson, I don't think he woke up after the Tennessee game and said, we're weak. I think he realized all year when he was calling plays on offense, I think he realized all year that they were soft. And that's why they called plays. And I think that's why the coach who left here said the problem is still in the building. I think he knew it. Trent obviously knows it. But I think it's very, very hard to do the things that you want to do when you know you can't. So you do whatever it is you can do. See, it appeared to me that the Jaguars' goal, and while it's a cliche thing to say, we're going to win this moment right now, we're going to be in the moment and do, I think the Jaguars' goal was to figure out a way how to win each and every single moment of every single game, and hopefully the game itself, so that their record would be good enough that they could say that they made progress. But deep down inside, they knew on the inside that it wasn't it. So they're a 9-8 team, and I think they absolutely I don't think they underachieved. I don't think they underachieved. I think they're 9-8 because that's exactly who they are. That is their identity. If you want to know what their identity is, it's 9-8. I think they got everything they could out of those players. Because I'm not going to sit here and throw stones and hide my hands. I'm not going to sit here and talk out of both sides of my neck. If I don't believe that they got everything out of those players that they could, then that would mean that the players are capable of more, which means that Trent Baalke actually did put together a team that should win 12 games. I don't think he did. I think the team won the amount of games that they were supposed to, because they have a huge weakness, and it just so happens to be one of the 2 or 3 things you can't be and be a champion at football, and that's soft and not physical and not strong enough. That's the reality check. I watched those teams yesterday. They were so tuned in and dialed in. It just came down to a play here and a play there, something that somebody couldn't do. Drop pass, convert a 4th down, get the ball off right before a guy hits you, or not get the ball off before a guy hits you. It came down to just being competitive. I saw a quarterback catch his own pass and could have scored a touchdown if a guy wasn't hustling and tackled him. I saw a wide receiver who didn't quit on a play, and when a ball hit a dude in the face, he caught it while his team was down, and they needed every single thing to go their way. Those teams played to their identities, and their identity is one where they don't quit. And when you don't quit, it's one of the things that happens when you don't make excuses. I want to remind y'all something. When you listen to these press conferences, how many times did you hear somebody make an excuse? I know that an excuse and a reason can be identical twins in some cases. These cases, they weren't excuses. How many times during the year did you hear a player say, it's like we don't even practice? Excuse. How many times you hear somebody say something like this? The crowd was too loud, we couldn't hear. And they were at home on Monday night where the crowd was supposed to be loud. How many times did you hear, maybe we need to get out of Jacksonville for a day or two? This will be good for us. We'll get on the road. How many times did you hear about it being hot? I'm just saying, the reason they're soft it ain't just about lifting weights. It ain't just about what you're putting in your body. How many times did you hear Doug say something like this? I tell them all the time, you got to do more even when you're not here. What are they doing when they're not here? And I'm paraphrasing, but I remember he said it because I was there that day. Well, I was watching that day. I wasn't there. It was one of those press conferences where I watched it on instead of going to the building. But I remember when he said that, like, are the guys doing enough on their own time type thing? When you start finger pointing, even if the thing you're saying is true, that's not holding people accountable. That's just pointing out what folks are doing. Holding them accountable is what you do behind the scenes so that you don't have to stand here and tell us that they're doing it, because they're not doing it because you told them behind the scenes not to do it. The reason why this team is soft, in my opinion, is because everybody makes excuses, and excuses are acceptable. And Shad Khan's accepting those excuses. I want to know, can a Jaguar change its spots without wiping everybody out of the building and just starting all over? Can they change? That's going to be an interesting question. And I'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored by Prize Picks. That's right. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America, man, and it has been good to me this year. You know why? Because I'm playing Prize Picks, but I'm not playing against a whole bunch of other people. I'm not playing against sharks, and I'm not playing against pros. It's just me against the system. All you got to do is pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the money roll in. And there ain't no lie, because the money rolled in for me this year. Really, really did. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonnfl and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. I'll say it again. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonnfl and use LOCKEDONNFL, all lowercase, for a deposit match up to $100. Segment number 2 here on Locked On Jaguars. I'm sitting here with my disappointed self, looking at championship weekend yesterday, and I'm just wondering, could we ever with this group? When Trent Baalke was in San Francisco early on, when Jim Harbaugh was there, they were one of the two or three most physical football teams there was at the time. When Harbaugh left, not so much. So when I had somebody the other day show me, look at all the players that he selected while he was the GM in San Francisco. There was a battle between him and Jim Harbaugh. I don't know that he did, if they were working in collaboration. I don't know if Trent Baalke was the one who was responsible for all of that stuff, because he hasn't been able to duplicate that when Jim Harbaugh is not around. The one thing that's not put up with a coach like Jim Harbaugh and a coach, Andy Reid and some other coaches, they don't take excuses, man. You got to do your job. And when you watch these games yesterday on Championship Sunday, you saw a bunch of people doing their job, and you saw a bunch of people expecting those around them to do theirs. Even the teams that lost, somebody has to win, somebody has to lose, but you got to just get to the point where you know that you're going to be the best version of yourself. And what I mean by that is, you got to know what the expectations are. You got to know when you wake up in the morning what you're supposed to be doing. Everybody has to be on the same page. And you have to go out and try to execute. So the teams that I saw, even the losing teams, were good enough to work their plan. Their plan just didn't work, because somebody was going to win and somebody was going to lose. They have to just get a little bit better. And I know the Ravens, if you ask them, hey, we just didn't execute. We didn't play the way we wanted to. And you'll hear stuff like that. And you'll hear Dan Campbell get blamed for everything because he went for it, which he did. But see, that's their identity. That's who they are. It just bit them in the butt yesterday, right? In hindsight. But they at least went in with a plan, and this is what we're going to do. They had some drops. They had some instances where they missed some tackles. The ball was bouncing, the momentum got away from them. That's the kind of stuff you can live with, because, as Dan Campbell said, it's hard to get there, and this may have been our only shot. But I hear it in his voice that he's going to try hard next year. They're going to try. They know they have to get better. They have to get guys that won't drop those balls. They have to get guys that will make those tackles. And it's just a play or two. The Jaguars aren't 1 or 2 plays away from being in that category or even close to it. They're just not. And I don't know if under the same leadership you can go in now and take this posture. This is what I mean about the reality check and whether or not a Jaguar can change its spots. The reality check, you walk in and now you're going to be somebody that you're not, or that they already know that you're not. You're going to make things tougher. The idea that you can add 3 offensive linemen to that room and 2 defensive tackles to the room, and those 5 people by themselves will make your entire team more physical and stronger, because that's not going to work. The point is can you be believable now with this leadership? And I'm talking about Doug Peterson. Are you believable? Can you be believable if you come in with this different posture? Because what I'm saying is they're going to have to take a different posture. They got to get mentally tough before they can get football tough. They got to get the reason why I say mentally tough And the reason why I'm coming to the conclusion that they are not tough right now mentally is because of the way everybody conducted themselves at the microphone and at the podium all season, and now into the off season, where they're admitting that they know that they soft as Charmin, right? They understand that. They're admitting it now. It's not their job to tell you that during the year, but if you think about it and use a little bit of your brain, you can realize that, oh, this is why they were calling those plays that way. Yeah, that's why they throw the ball when they're inside of the red zone, because they know they can't move nobody. They did that 2 years ago and thought they fixed it with Tank Bigsby and a tight end in the second and third round. And they're still soft. They tried to get stronger and tougher, and it still didn't work. You know why it didn't work? Because adding 2 people won't change the mentality of an entire organization. This stuff is just accepted too much. It's too much mediocrity. How can your quarterback go out in a press conference and he stinks the joint up and then go, well, yeah, it's like we don't even practice or something? That's the biggest indictment. See, stuff like that ain't supposed to come out during the season. I always use this analogy. I was like, some people got roaches, but you can't see them because they stay under the fridge and behind the stove until nighttime. You cut the light on and they start running. But if you are over at somebody's house and a roach just walks across the middle of the living room like you ain't even there, there's 1,000 of them back there. It's so crowded he had to walk. You ain't supposed to see roaches in the daytime, right? So Trevor ain't supposed to say in the daytime, right in your face, it's like we don't even practice. That's a problem to me. It's not just soft physically. To me, they're soft mentally. Not that he said it, but because it was true. Well, they actually do practice, but he says they were playing like they don't practice. But who is he talking to? He was speaking to us, but who is he talking to? Is it himself? Is it his receivers? Is it the coaches? Is it the GM? It's like we don't even practice during the week. How come nobody owned that? How come nobody said, well, I don't know what he's talking about, but we do practice, but how about we just don't execute when it really matters, when somebody else is punching us in the face? Soft. S-O-F-T. That's why. Ain't nothing you're going to do about it. You ain't going to change the whole team. You ain't going to change the whole roster. If the coach comes in and he sits there and he tries to be what he's not, he's always been sort of like a player's coach. He comes in and he tries to be. See, I think Doug Peterson's shtick works. It worked in Philadelphia, which ain't a soft city, and that team he had was super, super physical. So why is it not working here? Maybe he don't have Philadelphia Eagle type players, and maybe that's because the general manager ain't that good. I'm gonna give you my outlook on all of this stuff in segment number 3. But first, I have to let you know that Locked On Sports Today is the real deal. It is the rave. That's right. It's the national YouTube channel for Locked On, and they've locked on Sports Today, and it's here 24/7 covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, like me. Plus, our national shows covering every league. I do one of those too. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. I'm going to give you my outlook based on everything that I just told you. I told you, man, Jaguars didn't even play, and I got some new revelation to give y'all just by watching somebody else and what it's supposed to look like. I'll tell you all about it in segment number 3, what my outlook is in just a second. What up, folks? It's all about better help when you need the help that some of us run into problems and we need therapy. That's right. I have had therapy and I'm back and forth with therapy, and I can tell you it absolutely works. And part of it is because it can really work for you if you are shy. You can have someone online who can help you. That's right, and that's what BetterHelp is. You can do it over the phone, man. And if you have a little bit of trepidation with a therapist, you can always switch to another therapist until it's right for you, man. We just sometimes need help getting ourselves back on track, and BetterHelp is there just for that. Visit betterhelp.com/locked on to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com, HELP.com/locked on to get 10% off your first month. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. All right, third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars. We're at your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. Segment one, I talked about the championship games and the things that I saw, and I tried to envision the Jacksonville Jaguars in that situation. And that vision just kept getting blurred because I could not imagine them competing at that high level with how they are now. Can a Jaguar change its spots? Can you go from being a non-physical team to a team that is physical in 1 year? You can add some pieces that can change that. Some guys will go lift weights, and some guys may even do a little bit of something they ain't supposed to be doing. I ain't trying to say they will, but it happens in the NFL. But more or less, I think being physical, while it is a physical part of it, I think is also a mentality that comes along with it. And I think guys that are physical won't not be physical and won't turn soft just because their leadership is soft. I think if you're physical, and you're going to keep being physical regardless. And there are some players on the Jaguar team that are physical. Trayvon Walker is an extremely physical player. Josh Allen is physical. I think Anton Harrison is physical, even though that's something he could work on a little bit more, get a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger. But he was playing last year with an injury. So I think there are elements of this team where guys play physical. I think Ford Oluwakan is physical. I think Andre Sisco is a very physical player. Tyson Campbell can be physical. But see, it's not just about cherry picking individuals. It's about having a mentality of physicality that sometimes it gets masked because first we thought the 49ers were the bullies of the league, and then Baltimore went out and bullied them, right? Well, Philly was supposed to be the barnyard bullies, and then they got bullied by San Francisco. And then Baltimore goes and they go up and they bully the 49ers and bully everybody else. And we just slept on the fact that here comes this mentally tough, very professional, very talented Kansas City Chiefs team with DNA of toughness. And they out tough these bullies and they out physical the bullies to the point where the Baltimore Ravens don't even try to run the football. So it's not as if you can sometimes hide how physical you are because of how good you are at other stuff, and teams can sort of take you lightly in the physicality department. But what you can't hide is when you're not. And what you can't fix quickly is if you're not. And you can get Phil Heath and every other guy who's built like Adonis to let these guys lift weights. But if they're not physical on the inside, if the softness doesn't get out of them, it's not going to help, because as soon as they get punched in the face, they're going to turn right back into who they are. And if you've allowed this kind of excuse making to go on in the building, if you've allowed this sort of mentality to exist and permeate through that franchise, then I don't think you can now be the guy to exterminate it and run it out to the point where it's going to get you to a championship level, until you cycle through all the dudes that have been on the team and you end up flipping and turning the roster over with a whole bunch of people. That's why I don't think this is a one-off season fix. And that's the reality that breaks my heart. Just like I made the proclamation back in October, I said, I just saw something about the Jags. They were 8-4 because they had just lost to the San Francisco. I said, there's something gravely wrong with this team that can't be fixed during this season. They ain't gonna be able to start fixing it until the offseason. But there's something wrong, and this team can't win a championship. I saw it, and it came back to end up being the truth, and it also ended up being the thing that was a glaring uh, thing that was mentioned by Trent Baalke as an admission. My issue with him is this your handiwork, bro. You did this. And that's the point that I'm trying to. You're actually asking the guy who screwed up to fix it. I think he's getting a mulligan from a lot of people because you're talking about what he took over was an absolute mess. So what he's done is admirable, but the best he could do is 9-8, 2 straight years. And I don't think he's equipped to take the next jump. And the next jump, he admits, is more difficult than what he's already done. It's hard for me to get around the fact that this team lacks physicality and strength. I just don't understand it. And then when you just take that physical part of it away and look at their mentality, I think back to all of the press conferences and all of the things people said and things y'all don't even know about like guys going off on the media. It's like, I'm not the one that beat you. They did. What are you mad at people in the media for? That's one thing I don't tolerate. If your player ever yell at me, I'll just walk away from them. I got kids their age. I got grandkids. You ain't going to sit here and yell at me. I ain't letting nobody over there yell at me. No one. And that's not because I think I'm big and bad, but there's just some things I don't tolerate and I don't put up with. And maybe they need to get like that. We're about 4 or 5 years, I think 5, or how long ago was it? 7 years ago that Tom Coughlin came and did a press conference and said that we need the word grit. We need to have the word grit or something like that. And this team just doesn't have it. And I know Doug had to come in and everybody was all fractured when he got the job and he had to handle things a certain way. Trent was there for that too, right? It's time to not be that way anymore, man. The best way, and here's what contributed even bigger to being soft. You know the best way to get rid of that stuff? 1, the type of players you bring in. 2, the attitude you have on a daily basis where you're trying to win everything. And 3 is to bring even more players in and have competition. When they sat there last year and said, it's built, baby. We did it, basically. We like our team. They were telling you that they liked a soft team because the team didn't become soft overnight. Why you want to keep moving forward with somebody that made the assessment that they had a good roster and they didn't need competition, basically. They were going to be a draft and develop team. Now you come back and they come back and say, well, we didn't really have a salary cap space. That ain't why they told you that he did it. They said they liked their team the way it was. They could have created some salary cap space, and they know it. You want to create salary cap space? Why didn't you re-sign Josh Allen last year? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they could have let Cam Robinson go too. Yeah, they could have done that. They're not physical, man, and they're also mentally not tough. And from what I saw yesterday, I don't think they can fix that in one off season. I really, really don't. And that's why I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but I just don't think it's going to get fixed in one off season. What ain't going to get fixed is y'all coming in here with me every day. Ain't nobody going to mess with that because it's not broken, right? We love it here on Locked On Jaguars when we get the participation from all of you guys. And I thank you for hitting me up on social media and commenting on YouTube. Be sure now to make sure you check out the audio podcast also wherever you get your podcasts. All right, man. Until tomorrow, we'll see you with another episode. Senior Bowl's going to crank up. I ain't able to make it over there, man. I got a couple of appointments that I could not change because if I changed them, it would have been 3 months from now until I was able to get back in. So I got to stay here, right? But I have reports from the Senior Bowl as all week as those things happen. Until then, you guys take care of each other, and see you next time here on Locked On Jaguars.